Good morning. Very nice that you're here. We're very glad you're here. My name is Allison Spencer. I'm the president of Kansas City Infertility Awareness, and I'm also one of the co-chairs for the education committee. The ladies that you see in the shirts that look like mine are also in the education committee, and we are the ones who are organized and hosting this event. Before we begin, I want to introduce a representative from Mosaic Life Center, which is where we are this morning. And we're very happy that of their generosity. We're very appreciative of their generosity. They have offered to let us have this seminar here for no cost at all, since we're a nonprofit. So we are very appreciative of you. We don't have a lot of funds, and most of our funds go toward putting on our annual conference. So we are always appreciative of gifts such as this. June LeBlanc.
Good morning and welcome. It is truly a pleasure to have you at Mosaic Life here. By show of hands, how many of you have ever been here before to one of our facilities in the Northland? Hey! Well, that's great. Most of you are probably wondering, well, what is Life Here? And I'm not going to take up too much time, but Life Here is our vision to help you live your life well, or however way you define it. So yes, we are a healthcare system, and we are part of the Mayo Clinic, but our goal is to help provide resources to you that cover all of the dimensions in your life. So that would be your career, your finances, your lifestyle, your relationships, your creativity. Provide outlets for you so that you can take care of those issues so that you don't have a lot of stress in your life and then you're forced to go to the doctor and the hospital. So our goal is to help provide resources to our Northland as well as our Southland residents as well to help them live life well. I am so honored to have you in our space today. This is our Life Center. We have our surgery side to my left, which is your right, and then we have our clinic and our urgent care to my right, which is your left. And what do we do in the Life Center here? As you see, we have our Aspire fountain. So many of you may be wondering, well, why do you have a fountain in the middle of your facility? Well, a lot of people, when they come to a clinic, it's either for a good reason or for a bad reason. And so we have an Aspire fountain here as a symbol that we hope that you aspire for things, that you don't give up on your dreams, that you hold true to your stories and to your values. And so what I have the honor of doing is I am a life celebrant, and I help create ceremonies and celebrations for people. I co-create them with you. So when you talk about ceremonies, yes, there are wedding ceremonies, and yes, there are end-of-life ceremonies. But also there are the celebrations in between. For example, adoption ceremonies. It could be baby blessings or naming ceremonies, or even transition stories or celebrations, such as when one of your loved ones is moving from one housing situation into another. And so that's one of the things that we offer at Mosaic Life here is an opportunity to help you celebrate your life the way you define it so that it can strengthen you as an individual as well as your immediate community. Just a few housekeeping things. We do have fruit-infused water, so I hope if you like strawberries, you would taste that. One of our chefs prepared it for you first thing this morning. Then we have regular water as well. But then we also have our restrooms to the back of the facility. The men's side is on the left and the women's side is on the right. If you have any questions or any concerns, I will be around, so feel free to grab me. We also have lots of brochures about some of our wellness programs that we offer. We offer Tai Chi and yoga, and we have cooking classes throughout the week as well. So take a look at us online, mymosaiclifehere.com, and check us out for any summer events that we have, and we'd love to have you back in our space. Thank you, and enjoy your presentation.
All right, I'm going to give you a quick history. I know some of you are brand new and have never attended one of our events before, and some of you have been to one of our events before. As I said, all of the people dressed in shirts like me are on the education committee, and I will introduce them one by one to you. We have Jacqueline right here, and Jacqueline and I are both the co-chair. We have Janice, Ann, Amy, and then over here we have Melissa. And we have one who just recently had a baby, and so she isn't able to make it with us. Her name is Amanda. Originally, KCIA started out as 4 women. The first 2 years of our conference in April, there was 4 women who put on our conference. And by the second year, we realized that we needed more help, so then we joined 4 more people onto our board. And since then, with those four additional people, we had 2 additional annual conferences, and then we realized the need to grow even further. And now we have an advisory board, and with that advisory board, we have 4 different committees. The education committee hosts quarterly conferences throughout the year, or quarterly seminars, I should say, throughout the year. Everyone helps with the conference in April. We have a support group seminar, or support group committee, which I'll go into more towards the end of our morning here. And we have a monthly support group that meets every month, and I'll talk more about that. Men and women and loved ones attend that, so it's not just women who attend. All are welcome. And we also have a marketing committee, and then we also have a fundraising committee. We're going to be hosting a 5K soon, and possibly a trivia night soon. So just some fun things to do later on. Our long-term goal is to provide a grant, financial assistance to you in the form of a grant. We're getting closer to reaching that goal, and we're hoping by possibly the April conference that we'll be able to unveil plans for that at the conference and on our website. So keep posted about that. Just a few reminders. Make sure you got your name in the green basket. If you came with someone, make sure you both got your name in the basket. There's extra handouts in the back if you didn't get any. There is a pin also in the back if you did not receive that. The really important is the survey. We really do read those. The reason that we chose this seminar's topic is based upon comments from either conference surveys, which we've had before now, and also quite a few people at our last seminar requested financial help. I know when speaking about finances, it's kind of like politics. Sometimes you don't talk about it with certain people in your family or your friends because everyone has different ways of handling their finances. So that was one reason why we, for a few years, have been kind of dragging our feet on, okay, how do we go about this? And then our committee thought it would be best if you heard a wide variety of speakers from a wide variety of ways that they afford infertility treatments and or adoption. So we hope that you enjoy your morning. Feel free to use the restroom. If you haven't already, please make sure your cell phones are turned off or on mute. And Jacqueline's going to start us off. Before Jacqueline begins, I want to thank each of our speakers up here for taking their Saturday morning away from their family and friends and typical lazy Saturday mornings to be with us here. We really appreciate each one of you. Thank you. All right, here's Jacqueline.
Good morning. Well, our first speaker this morning is Christopher Wade, and he's a financial advisor at Waddell & Reed, and he also has adopted himself. So if you guys have any questions, especially about international adoption, in addition to what he's presenting, I know he'd love to tell you all about it.
Well, good morning. I don't know if any of you have much experience talking in front of people. I would love to be able to say I could walk around here and not have any notes. I can't do that. And so if I mess up, just smile and nod, and we'll go on. But my name is Christopher Wade. I am a financial advisor with Waddell & Reed. I work with a team of 2 other financial advisors. Chuck Dale, who is a CFP, that's a certified financial planner. And then we have a brand new millennialist. You know what that is? The young guys who know all about computers and LinkedIn and all that. So Brandon Schleiden, so he just started with us last year. My office is located in Independence, Missouri, just off I-70 and Little Blue Parkway, so we're kind of south and east of here. You may be familiar with Waddell & Reed's national headquarters in Overland Park, Kansas. So we're a national firm, but just happen to be a hometown company. And we've been doing financial planning and investment planning for almost 80 years now. Now, I've been with Waddell & Reed for 25 years, and you're thinking, wow, did you start when you were 12 years old? No. But I was 21, at the tender age of 21, right out of college. I earned my degree in finance degree in business administration with a concentration in finance. And then I went on to earn my nerd degree in economics. So you're looking at a certified nerd. There you go, you have it. My wife and I, my wife's name is Laura, and we have 6 kids. And we like to affectionately say we have 4 homegrown and 2 made in China. So obviously I'm no stranger to the financial challenges of trying to grow your family. After 4 biological children, my wife said, I'm done having babies, but we weren't done growing our family. And we found that we could do that through adoption. So in 2009, we adopted our first daughter from China. Her name is KCIA, and she was 6 years old. Then 2 years later, in 2011, almost to the day, we adopted Kei Wu at the age of 7. So we didn't go the traditional route of looking for another baby. We've been there, done that, but have 2 beautiful daughters that challenge me every day. So separate from the financial aspects of what I'm about to share with you, if you would like to connect with me and my wife about international adoptions, the joys and challenges about that, I would be happy to talk to you and tell you our story about that later after the conference perhaps. Now, I can't possibly provide you with all the information that you might want to know about financially surviving, growing your family in the short amount of time we have together. So I want to encourage you to seek out a professional that you can talk to one-on-one, do some financial planning with them. I think every person deserves the help of some kind of professional, talking to them one-on-one to help you with your financial plan for you and your family. That being said, I want to share with you 5 questions that you ought to be asking yourself or thinking about as you prepare to grow your family or maybe continue to prepare to grow your family. So the first question might be, why do I need a financial plan? You know, many of life's greatest journeys have something in common. They all start with a well-thought-out plan. Whether you're planning for your family or your finances, no matter where you set your sights, you'll want a plan to reach your destination. Just as a map helps you find your way on a trip, a financial plan is a roadmap that can help you stay on course to reach your financial goals. So I'm going to go off script for a second because this is kind of crazy. I was on my way up here this morning. I'm thinking about what I'm going to be talking about, roadmaps and plans. And so most of us now have GPS on our phones, right? Okay, that's a whole brand new thing. Back when I was younger, we had these books that you open that had street maps and try to find them. And maybe you don't know what a map is, but I don't know. So I Google or whatever I do on my iPhone, and it shows me 3 different ways to get here. Which one am I going to take? So many options. Well, you know, the kind of guy I am, I want the quickest way there. So I choose, the route that's all interstate. Now, some would argue that's a little more risky to be on the interstate traveling that fast, right? But it got me here quicker. Okay? Same thing is kind of true with our financial lives and financial planning. There's more than one way to get to your financial destination. Some ways are going to take a little more risk, but you might get there quicker. I could have been here slower if I got in an accident, right? So I encourage people, as you think about your financial plan and what you're doing, there's more than one way to get there. Some are going to take a little more risk. Some may get there a little quicker. Some are more scenic, but you can always get there. And I say that because different financial advisors are going to have different advice and different ideas about what you should do. That doesn't mean one guy is right and one person is wrong. It just means there's a different opinion about how you can do that and what's best for you. Now I'm way off course here. Okay, so a sound financial plan is a comprehensive plan that includes things like retirement funding, education funding, insurance, cash flow, tax liability, and estate planning. All the major things you normally think of when you think of financial planning. But because a goal can be achieved in many different ways, a well-thought-out analysis may include alternatives or what-if scenarios, along with the pros and cons of each option. So the second question is, when deciding to pay for fertility treatments, what long-term considerations should be evaluated? Well, funding the cost of infertility treatments or adoption, for the most part, those are short-term financial goals. The long-term goals, as I mentioned, are the retirement, education funding, appropriate affordable insurance protection, maintaining adequate cash reserves, minimizing consumer credit card debt, things of that nature. But diverting funds from a retirement plan, like a 401k, to pay for infertility treatments or adoption may affect your retirement scenario. Now, that doesn't mean that choosing to borrow money from your 401k or deferring your contributions to your 401k to fund other goals is unwise. It simply means you need to prioritize your goals and know the consequences of those choices. For instance, if money is needed for an adoption or fertility treatments, you can increase your cash flow in the short run by suspending contributions to your retirement plan. However, you may find that you've increased your tax liability because now your taxable income is higher because you're no longer deferring that money that you didn't have to pay taxes on. And again, while this may help you in the short run, it can have a dramatic impact not only on your tax return, but on your long-term goal for saving for retirement. Now, I mentioned that I'm an economics nerd, right? So you got to live with that here for just a second. So when I was in college, I was involved in a group called Students in Free Enterprise. I think they call it something different now, I'm not sure. But we would go into elementary schools and teach economic concepts to elementary school students. So yes, even they can learn about economics. So we would go in and give them a piece of paper, and on one side of the paper was a butterfly, on the other side was a fish. And we'd ask them to color both of those in just the very best that they could, make them as beautiful as they could. And once they had completed that, I gave them a pair of scissors and said, now cut it out. Now you can see almost with a tear in their eye, but which one? Well, you have to make that choice. The opportunity cost of cutting out the butterfly is you have to lose the fish, and vice versa. So when we consider your financial aspects of your life and the choices that you make, we need to know what those opportunity costs are. What are you going to give up in order to gain what you want? And it's not a bad thing. It's just we need to be aware of that and say, can we live with the consequences of that choice? The third question is, should I consider using a credit card or home equity line of credit to pay for infertility treatments or adoption? In general, if it's available, a home equity line of credit is preferable to using credit cards. The equity line of credit may provide a potential tax deduction for the interest that you pay on the amount that you borrowed. I would encourage you to seek out a professional tax preparer or CPA to make sure you qualify for that deduction before you make that move, though. Credit cards will generally cost you more in the long run with higher interest rates, but regardless of which avenue you choose, now you have a new problem. You have a repayment plan, don't you? And so now you've got to include that into your budget, and that can impact things such as your financial goals like cash flow and saving for an emergency or other opportunities that might come up. Fourth question, should we consider working with a financial planner? What do you think a financial planner is going to say? All right, but here's the thing. Most people dealing with money in an emotional experience. Let's start that over. For most people, dealing with money is an emotional experience. Many of us act on impulse, and the feelings of fear and grief usually make us do the wrong thing with our money. A financial advisor should serve as a detached, objective professional who can remove the emotions from the financial process. So engaging the services of a financial planner, however, is not short-term in nature. It's not really transactional, if you will, but it's more of a long-term relationship. I tell my clients that an occupational hazard of working with me is you're probably going to get to know more about me and my family than you really care to. But on the flip side, I'm also going to get to know more about you and your family as well. So last question, how do we find a financial planner with experience with family budgeting issues? You know, I guess my answer to that question is, how did you find your doctor, maybe your attorney, the person who cuts your hair, your dentist? Well, most of us, we just asked a friend, didn't we? In fact, you probably put it on Facebook and had 32 responses. Okay, that's generally how you find someone to provide services for you, or maybe at a conference like this. But if you're looking for, well, okay, I want to do more research, then there's organizations out there such as the Financial Planning Association, the Certified Financial Planning Board of Standards, that you can reach out to them and try to find a financial advisor in your area. So on Tuesday, March the 3rd at 6:30 p.m., I'm going to be conducting a financial planning seminar. So y'all should have picked up one of these guys, hopefully. Hopefully you didn't make it into an airplane or something, I don't know. And again, that's going to be at my office. It's in Independence. We'll be on the 3rd floor. We have a conference room on the 3rd floor. It's at 6 p.m. in the evening. And so you all are welcome to come to that. Now, I know most speakers, and they just did this earlier, asked you to put your phones on mute, put them away, I'm going to ask you all to get out your phones for just a minute, if you don't mind. You don't have to. Play along if you want to. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you are on LinkedIn? A few of you? Okay. I'm only on LinkedIn because I have a young guy in my office who made me get on LinkedIn. I know a little bit about it. If you would like, you can search Christopher R. Wade and request to connect with me, and that will give you more information about the seminar, where it is, times and locations. Also gives you our web address, which is probably up behind me. It is. So you can go to www.wadeteam.rwrfa.com. And on our website, we have a events page, and you can actually sign up for the seminar right there on our webpage if you'd like to attend that. And of course, you have my pin, so I made it very easy for you to connect with me. Can you tell? So I did my very best. But if you can't make it to the seminar, but you feel like you still want to visit with me, I want you to know there is no cost, A, for the seminar, but there's no cost just to call my office and say, hey, I want to sit down and visit with you for a few minutes, okay? I don't charge an initial consultation fee. But at that appointment, I will tell you this, we will try to answer two questions. One, can I help you? And two, do you want my help? And if that seems like a fair way to start a relationship, I would love to get to know more about your story. And I will be around afterwards. If you have any other questions, either about financial stuff or about adoption, I'd be happy to tell you our story about adoption. But thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is the Myers. They are going to talk to you about Financial Peace University. I think one thing that you're going to see by the end of our morning today is that there are a variety of different ways that you can achieve the finances that you want to build your family. So I know that they're going to have a little bit a different take on what Christopher had for you. So please welcome the Myers. Thank you. Hello, my name is Courtney. This is my husband, Thomas. I'd just like to start off by saying how extremely honored we are to be on this side this year, and the fact that we're standing before you. We've been sitting in your spots for the last several years. So before we get into Financial Peace University, I want to tell you a little bit about our story. Thomas and I were married in September of 2010. On our first date, we talked about having children. We knew we loved each other on our first date, kind of one of those creepy fairy tale romances. So as soon as we got married in September of 2010, we started trying to have a baby. It was pretty obvious right away that something wasn't right. Wasn't having cycles, no ovulation. I could go on and be awkward about it. So I first started visiting my OBGYN, and she put me on metformin. You've probably heard of that. She sent me on my way, said best of luck, and that obviously didn't work. It took a year and a half before we found a healthcare provider that evaluated our situation and set us on the right path. So until that, I had no idea why I wasn't getting pregnant, but it was due to PCOS and the fact that I have literally thousands of cysts on my ovaries. So in that same year, we attended the KCIA Infertility Conference. We were blown away to find out that there was a community of people, that we weren't on our own in this struggle. We all were able to talk about this thing that society kind of treats like a bad word, like you kind of have to whisper infertility. And I remember feeling really lonely until we came to the conference. How many times have you heard, oh, it'll happen when it happens? Or my all-time favorite, I'm a pastor's wife, so my all-time favorite is, it'll happen in God's time. We walked out of our first conference not hearing those things. We walked out with a renewed sense of hope and encouragement that someday we would be parents. So it took another year of treatments, medication, scheduled sex, IUI, and countless negative pregnancy tests before we finally got our miracle. And it was exactly a year ago today that I took that test. And I expected that it would be another negative pregnancy test because they all had been for the past 4 years. But that 2 lines changed our lives. and I get a little bit emotional about it. But Emma Lynn was born on October 4th, 2014, perfectly healthy via C-section. So we won't tell you that it was easy. And we're certainly not going to say that it wasn't hard on our marriage and that it wasn't hard financially. But luckily, during our infertility struggle, we had the chance to take Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. And it changed our lives, and it changed the way that we looked at money. So the course helped us so much that we've actually since become coordinators and have directed a couple of classes at our churches. So we're going to tell you a little bit about Financial Peace University and how it can help you.
All right, so my degree is not in finance or economics or anything awesome like that. I'm actually in religion, which is fairly unapplicable to most situations, it seems like, job-wise, right? But so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, we're financial gurus. You're not going to find my book on the New York Times bestsellers list or anything like that. But I can tell you that going through Financial Peace University has profoundly impacted the way that both we handle our day-to-day stuff and the way that we were able to tackle stuff like saving up for big things like IUI or ABF. We still have student loans. We still see things and go, I just want to buy that because we're human and we have those impulses and stuff like that. But FEU is a 9-week course. It used to be 14 weeks actually, but we only have 10 minutes, so obviously we're not going to be able to teach everything that you would learn in that course. But we do want to show you kind of the basics of a zero-based budget and send you away with some useful tools that you might be able to help you feel better about where your money's going and how to save for those expensive treatments like IUI and IVF or saving up for adoption and stuff like that. It's very costly. You probably have a handout there. The first one should be an example of a budget that we put together as a monthly cash flow plan. And it's got a lot of categories on there that maybe you might not even use, but the general idea, we filled in some of it so you can have an example to go off of. And a lot of people think of that, the B word, budget, and it's kind of like a bad word. Like oh, it's going to restrict me. I'm not going to be able to do the things I want to do, right? But what Dave Ramsey says is that a budget is simply telling your money where to go instead of getting to the end of the month and wondering where it went, right? So you look at the budget, you get to the bottom of it, and you see that there's actually not anything extra at the end. You don't have like a surplus, and that's what a zero-based budget is. It's not that you don't have any spending money or anything like that, because you do have pocket money. It's actually a category in there. You factor in what you want to be able to, I want to get a Dr. Pepper or whatever. But the idea, like I said, of a zero-based budget is that you don't have a lot of extra stuff at the end. If you have extra at the end, you're not doing it right. But everything is accounted for, even pocket money, which is nice.
So what Dave teaches you is the first thing that you need to do when you're going to start your budget, because I'll admit, when we first went to Financial Peace University, I went, how do we do a budget? That was just not something that I was taught growing up. So the first thing that he tells you to do is collect all of your receipts, every single one of them. If you get a soda out of the soda machine, you should have a little notebook and write it down. Every single thing needs to be accounted for. That'll do two things. One that it will do is it's going to show you where you're throwing your money away. For instance, we were newlyweds and noticed that we were spending a lot on eating out. The second thing it does is it shows you where you spend your money so you can budget appropriately. If you're spending $50 a month on new clothing, but you only budget for $15, obviously that's not going to work. So there's a lot more to getting started on your budget than that, but that's a really good place to start and can help you see where you might have some extra money.
Yeah, as you do that, you kind of find some things out about yourself. It's almost like learning about what your spending habits are, is learning about yourself. So, talking about savings, you ever heard somebody say, I always thought when I was growing up, well, you're probably always going to have a car payment. That's just how it works, right? Well, Dave Ramsey didn't think so, and we realized that's not the truth either, necessarily. In fact, we did have a car when we started the class 4 years ago when we first took it. And during the course of being in that class, we realized that we wanted to get rid of that car. We sold it and we bought a cheaper one that was more practical and well, cheaper. So we how we did it is we used the principles that we learned in FPU. And what Dave teaches is rather than going to a car lot and just picking out the car and saying, okay, well, I'll pay that, you sign the loan, you sign your life away, basically, and then you drive it off the car lot, and immediately the value depreciates like 1,000%. But instead, you find the car you want, you take the amount that it costs, and you divide that cost by how quickly you want to have the car. And you know, it might not seem like it's something that you can do, but let's say you want a $10,000 used Prius, and your goal is to have it in 6 months. We put away about $1,500 a month, and if you're quick at math, you realize, well, 1,500 times 6 is only $9,000. But if you walk into a car lot with $9,000, I guarantee you they'll give you the $10,000 car, right? Yeah, they'll give it to you.
They don't go someplace else.
Right, but it might seem like a lot to save away $1,500 a month for something like that, but at the end of the 6 months, you own it, not the loan company. And so what Courtney and I did is we applied that same principle to saving up for expensive infertility treatments like IUI. They're substantially expensive, and so rather than taking out a loan or using a credit card, what we did is we saved up for it like that.
According to the American Society of Reproductive Medicine, the average cost of a single IVF treatment is about $2,000 more than I used Prius. Thankfully, we only had to use IUI treatments, but we did save for those treatments, and that's what we did. We figured out how much it was going to cost based upon what our doctor said when it would be appropriate to take that. And of course, we wanted those treatments right now. When they said, okay, we're going to do IUI, I said, all right, let's start tomorrow. And then realized that wasn't exactly fiscally responsible. So we didn't feel that putting treatments on a credit card was appropriate for us. We are still working on being debt-free, but we don't have credit cards. And we did not want to go into debt having a baby. So we saved up the money, walked in, handed her our cash. We had the treatment, and then we walked out. And I find that this would be especially helpful, and it was for me when my IUI treatment failed. I wasn't paying for it on my credit card 3 months later. I can't imagine how much more painful that would have been. You know, you spend $12,000 on an IVF treatment, and you're paying for it for how long? Every month you see that name on the bill. That would really hurt. That's why we really needed to pay cash for it.
So I know for a lot of people it's probably like, well, I don't even have even like an extra $10 in my budget a month to put aside for something like that. So how can I even save up for something like that? How can I put aside that much money, let alone $1,500 to throw around? Who has that? Nobody has that. Well, this is where a technique called debt snowball that we learned from Financial Peace University came in really, really handy. And I'm not going to tell you that the right thing to do is necessarily to pay off every single credit card or every single debt that you have before even considering things like adoption or IVF or IUI, because that's not necessarily true either. In fact, I mean, we still had debt when we were doing this, and we still do. We still have student loans. Paid off like 10 credit cards during the course of that class, but yeah, you don't have to be completely debt free for that. But basically, we took all those credit cards, we paid them off, and we had $1,000 in our savings account to kind of create that safety net for, you know, you think, okay, I'm going to get in an accident, I need to have my credit card so in case some emergency happens. That's what we had our emergency fund for. And so the way that we did these things was by using that debt snowball idea, which actually I provided for you in your handout as well. There should be a form called the debt snowball. And if you want to do that, then what you need to do is you list out your debts from the smallest one to the largest one, not by the amount that you pay each month, but by the total amount that you owe, the actual balance. And so then what you do is you take all those things and you make payments like you always did, right? But with the very smallest one, you're going to throw everything you can at it. Like have a garage sale, do something to get rid of that smallest debt, and then you take that minimum payment you used to pay. Say it was $50 on that smallest debt, and now you apply that to the next smallest debt. So now, instead of just paying the minimum payment on that new smallest debt, you're now paying the minimum payment plus another $50 that you used to pay. So basically, you take that, and when you get to a point where you feel like you've paid off enough stuff and you have that wiggle room that you've needed, then you can finally take that huge snowball you just spent this time building up, rolling up, and you apply it to saving up for something like adoption or IVF or IUI. So, okay, example, say I paid off 4 credit cards. That's a substantial amount. Maybe my minimum payments for those 4 credit cards were $25, $38, $45, and $72. Well, altogether, that's $157 that I did not have every month before that, before I paid off all those cards. And so now, if I want to apply that money to saving for something like building my family. Now I have the money where I can do that. And I can't tell you how good that feels to be able to do that.
So obviously we threw a whole lot at you. And those are just a few of the ways that Financial Peace University can help you get out of debt and can help you work towards your goal of whatever you're going to use to build your family. Because I know Thomas and I would not have ever stopped. And we never will. So that's just how that it not only helped us with our struggle with infertility, but also how it helps with life. It just makes you kind of feel like you have a little bit more of a handle on things. Please jot down any questions you have. We'd be happy to answer them at the end. We will hang around. We also, your last page, we included a list with these pretty little QR codes. Isn't my husband nifty? And so you can scan those and see the classes around that are being provided. Flatwoods United Methodist is just up the highway, and the class would be really great, and you can get more into depth about how to use Financial Peace University to help you.
And that's just, of course, that's just a smattering of classes in the area. If you go to the website, you can find like there's like probably 6 or 7 classes coming here.
Okay. So also, I want to thank the ladies of KCIA because the organization definitely helped us get through our rough time. So thank you.
So next up, we have a couple guests to speak on medical tourism and their experience with that. So Ilya and Michelle, and Rachel and Joel. So I don't know who wants to go first.
Hi, my name is Rachel, and this is my husband Joel. And we were actually at KCIA's first conference, which was 4 years ago. Okay, that's a long time ago. We've been on this journey for 8 years. And I'm getting emotional, and I'm sorry I was talking and doing that. We are finally on the other side. So we were in treatment for 7 years, on and off. We did oral meds. We did 3 medicated IUIs. We did 4 fresh IVF cycles and 3 frozen cycles here in the States. We got pregnant. We had 4 miscarriages. And one of those cycles we actually did PGD, the genetic testing. And so we know that we had a genetically normal embryo that we transferred that unfortunately was damaged a little bit in the thaw, which is why we think it's an implant. But a year and a half ago, we were to the point that we had to decide whether we were going to stop and be okay as a family of 2, or whether we were going to try one more time. We researched our options, including adoption. Our next door neighbor is from Norway, and she had success in going to Czech Republic for treatment. And so Joel and I are both very educated people. We have a master's degree, and we wanted to know what our options were. I lived overseas for 2 years, so going overseas was not an uncomfortable option for me. So we just started researching. I was a part of Hannah's Prayer, which is an online Christian support group for infertility. And one of the ladies there had gone to Greece and was not successful the first time, but I started looking at options. And so I looked at the clinic in Czech, I looked at the clinic in Greece, I looked at some other clinics as well abroad, and looked at their success rates, looked at what they did at the clinic. And then we had the really good, fortunate situation that we had a good relationship with our reproductive endocrinologist, who actually moved to another state during our last IVF cycle, but he stayed on as our consultant. So I said to him, here's the stats, here's what they do. It's really interesting that the clinics in Greece do a whole lot more additional testing than we do here in the States. Their success rates are equal, if not greater, than what we do here. And so we sat down with him, actually via phone, and went through all of this information that we had gathered, including cost. And we figured out that it really was about 1/3 of the cost for us to go overseas as it would be to do another IVF cycle here. And so we decided to go overseas. We decided to go to Greece, and this is where the lady on Hannah's prayer had gone. She had used Ruth Pello, who was an IVF nurse who was trained in the UK and now lives in Greece. And you have her information in your packet as well. We chose Ruth because she was very accessible. Using her was no more cost than if we had gone to the clinic without her. She's paid from the clinic through her fees. And so she helped us arrange for our process from day one. We were interested, and so we asked her to talk with us. So we arranged a Skype conference, and we talked with her in detail about the steps, about the process. Once we decided that we were going overseas to pursue this, she walked us through every step of the way. We had to have a doctor here in the United States that would do our monitoring. And so I was monitored here until we were ready to go. And then all those results were given to Ruth and then the doctor, Dr. Acosta in Greece as well. And so they made the decisions, and then the clinic here acted on whatever they decided to do. So we went to Greece the first time a year ago, Thanksgiving, and we stayed 14 days. We stayed with Ruth the first time that we went over. She has an apartment attached to her house that is right on the sea. We all know that stress affects treatment success, and so being right on the sea and being able to walk out and see the gorgeous Greek weather and the waves was just really relaxing for us. It also took our mind off of things because we had never been to Athens, and so we toured the entire time we were there, except for transfer day and then 2 days after that I was on bed rest. That cycle didn't work. We came back, we found out it didn't work, but we had 2 frozen embryos, and so a year ago this time I was in Athens for that transfer. And my husband wasn't able to go with me that time due to work, and so my dad went with me. But we were able to go for 2 weeks to Athens, and then I was able to go back for another 2 weeks. All of our treatment, all of our lodging, everything we did, including what we bought to bring back, was less than what one cycle would have been here. And we have a beautiful, amazing baby boy who came very early, not anything to do with the Greek clinic, but because of my body, I had preeclampsia. And so he was born August 11th at 28 weeks, and he'll be 6 months old next week and is doing amazing.
I don't have much to add to that, but we've sat where you're seating, and it's a relief for us to say that we have a kid now, but I know everyone out there is trying to have a kid. To see these success stories trot out, it can be discouraging, like what the heck are they doing that we're not? So I just want to say, nobody's doing anything wrong here. If you feel like you're alone in this, just look around at all the other people and know that you're not. If we need to talk about any of this, then we're happy to as well.
Hi everybody, my name is Michelle Mazel, and this is my husband Ilya. And I want to first start off by commending all the ladies that are involved in the KCIA group. Motherhood, in my opinion, is such an innate desire. It takes a really strong person to join a group that could possibly create anxieties and also fear of the unknown. So just all of you to actually reach out and go to a group, that is one step above. And also all the husbands that are here today, thank you so much for all of your support. Normally a lot of the husbands don't come to our group meetings, but it's so nice to see everybody's, my husband comes a lot, but it's so nice to see everybody's here. I'm going to try to make my really long story short, but sometimes many of you ladies know that I get carried away at group. It's very therapeutic for me. That way we can get into the details of my experience traveling to Greece. When I was 27 years old, I went off a pill with hopes, like all of you, that everything would happen quickly, it would happen naturally. And unfortunately, due to my active lifestyle at the time, I was ballroom dancing professionally, and I went through a period of amenorrhea for about 4 years. And as you know, if you go through amenorrhea, your cycle stops. If your cycle stops, then there's no possible chance of pregnancy. So from that point, time literally slipped by, and I was with a different partner at the time. And at 39 years old, I went to my OB and I decided I need to have some testings done because nothing was happening. I'd been off the pill since I was 27. And she ran some testings, and this was, back many years ago when people didn't really take advantage of going to get these testings done like you all are now. You guys are all much younger. I feel like I'm the grandmother of this group, but back then they didn't really push you at 35, even 40 years old. They really didn't push you to get these testings done. But that's beside the point. So anyway, at 39, I was having some testings done, and they diagnosed me as having diminished ovarian reserve, which is poor egg quality, and due to my advanced maternal age, my chances of pregnancy were pretty much slim, very slim. As I said, I began to kind of second guess myself because I was with a different partner at the time, and he didn't want children. And so I thought, well, maybe this is God's path for us. For me. Maybe I was not supposed to become a mother. So I kind of closed the book on motherhood at that time when I was 39. And literally 2 months later, I found out that I was naturally pregnant. And it was a very big shock because the doctor said your chances are, pretty much zero that you'd be pregnant, ever. So when I became pregnant, they found a septum in my uterus. And unfortunately, with that pregnancy, because the septum was in the uterus, it's like a piece of cartilage that runs down the center of the uterus. It doesn't allow for the fetus to have oxygen supply. So naturally, that was my first miscarriage. I went through 2 different surgeries to have the septum removed by 2 different reproductive endocrinologists. And now looking back at that, I think that probably the reason I hadn't gotten pregnant all of those years was because of the septum. But that was removed in case I would ever become pregnant again. So let's fast forward a little bit. When I was 40 years old, I went through 2 IVFs with my own eggs. Many of you know that when you have to look at other options, that it's a process that you have to get to. Even though I was told I had diminished ovarian reserve and my eggs were poor, you still want to try with your own eggs. It's a process. It's a stepping stone. So I'm completely in the same boat that everybody else is in. It was just about 5 years ago. So anyway, from that point, both of those IVFs were negative, unfortunately. And then I decided that I needed to put pregnancy on the back burner a little bit because I was having a life-changing experience. I was no longer with that partner, and I was moving back to the Midwest to be with my family and my parents. So after a couple of years had passed, I was almost 42, found out I was pregnant again. And that's quite a shocker when you're 42 years old and you're pregnant naturally again. Leaves me hope, but it's quite a shocker. My pregnancy at that point in time carried me through 10 weeks. I heard heartbeats, which is really unusual when you carry a pregnancy and you hear a heartbeat to miscarry after that. But at my 11th week appointment, there was no heartbeat and the sac was gone. So unfortunately, I was miscarrying again. My high-risk pregnancy specialist at the time, because of my age, I was going to a high-risk specialist right away from the get-go. He said that let's run some tests on you, find out what's going on. So he ran some tests. He found a high level of natural killer cells in my body. Anything that comes into my body that's foreign, my body attacks it. So he said, at least we know now, the next time you get pregnant, we'll put you on medication so that we can balance out the body's immune system. So, luckily, at that time, my high-risk specialist knew that, I was kind of putting things on the back burner, but he said, with your age, you really need to kickstart this process, take the bull by the horns, and if you want to be a mother, you need to consider doing this on your own. And so at that point in time, I was seriously contemplating, at that point in time, he said, stop waiting around for Mr. Right, go ahead and you can do this on your own, it's okay. And I was seriously contemplating on doing this on my own. I
I was looking at profiles for a sperm donor. My cousin, I always thought about her as an egg donor, so I had a little bit of a plan, like we all do have our plans. Well, at that point in time, my plan was a little bit sidetracked, and that's when I met Mr. Wright, and that's my husband. And that's my husband, Ilya. So Ilya is also older. We're both in our 40s. He's 42, and we found out he has male factor issues. So we've got my problem with diminished ovarian reserve, my problem with the natural killer cells at this time, and also Ilya's problem. So we've got lots of problems going on. But as I said in the beginning, it's such an innate desire that I know all of you would agree with me that motherhood is. And we still have that desire between us to start a family. So from that point in time, we met and we literally both knew we wanted to start a family. We hadn't gotten married yet, but we thought, let's go ahead and start trying. So 6 months after we met, we were starting to try to have a baby. We went to a reproductive endocrinologist, right from the get-go. That has been our priority. It wasn't, we knew our relationship was solid. We knew we were going to get married, but we also knew our body's clocks were both ticking. So we wanted to go ahead and start earlier. So that's what we did, and we went through, our doctor was very conservative. He let us try one IUI, which was negative. And then we decided, he said, from that point, you guys need to consider a donor. And I have a 36-year-old cousin that's a nurse, and I had spoken to her about this years ago, and she was all in years ago. So I brought this up to her again, and she said, yes, I'll definitely, I'm all in again. You know, I know we talked about this before, but yes, I will do this. So she went through the egg donor process with us, her and her husband did. And like I said, she was 36 years old at the time, but that's where we wanted to start. It was a known donor. It was affordable for us at the time, rather than going to an anonymous donor. So with my cousin Jody, with her as the egg donor, the first fresh cycle failed, unfortunately, and the second frozen cycle was our third miscarriage, unfortunately. But what a beautiful blessing. If any of you are considering donor and you know somebody, why not? You know, give it a chance. What a beautiful blessing. At this point, we were feeling defeated, deflated, and completely hopeless. The only thing that kept us going again was the desire. And in my treatments in the past, I had always been fortunate enough to pay for them out of pocket. I didn't ever finance them on credit cards. I didn't, take out loans, put a second mortgage on the house, anything like that. And when I met Ilya, we both agreed that that was going to be our plan, that we would not put these on credit cards, take a second mortgage out on the home. We were going to pay for this up front, okay? So we still feel very strongly about that. And at that point in time, we were close to $100,000 in spending in treatments. Okay, like I said, we had paid for it in cash, so it wasn't a debt, luckily. But we were to the point where, we have to set limitations also. So because of the many wonderful resources that we found with this group, we had met Rachel and Joel. And at the point in time that we met Rachel and Joel, they were very open to us right away and sharing their story with us about traveling to Greece. So after meeting with them, Ilya and I both agreed, this was a really good option for us. It's about a third of the cost, and their success rates are higher than here in the US. So a little bit. They're very comparable, but they are a little bit higher. So we thought, well, I already know that it's not going to be my egg, so why would I not seek out another alternative, for a third less of the cost, with a lot less stress on the marriage and the whole treatment cycle in general. So thank you for being our inspiration. And little Simon is just absolutely adorable. I see his little Facebook pictures all over. But anyway, thank you. But at that point, we decided we were going to go ahead and get married and utilize this treatment option as our honeymoon. So we went to Greece for our honeymoon, and we stayed there for 10, 11 days, I think, and we had the time of our lives. I mean, we were able to do what we needed to do as far as the treatment and what Ilya needed to do on his part,
And then there were 5 days that we could go and play. And then 5 days later, the IVF treatment cycle was ready for me to transfer. So it's a really nice experience because you have 5 days in between where the embryos are growing in the Petri dish. So that was a great experience to have those 5 days to just go and enjoy ourselves and enjoy a honeymoon. So the whole experience, the clinic is very state-of-the-art. The doctor is very intelligent, very quick treatment. The fertility nurse that Rachel already spoke of, Ruth, is top-notch. I mean, I literally could email her right now and have a response within 30 minutes if I had a question. She's just been wonderful. And I know I have also a monitoring doctor here, and sometimes my nurse here is like pulling teeth to get her to respond to my little needs that we have. So with Ruth, that was a big part of us making the decision because I appreciate that sort of customer service. So we went to Greece, we transferred to. Unfortunately, things were not very good from the get-go. And at around seven weeks, they didn't see significant enough growth. And those were, we had found out we had been pregnant with twins. So that was our miscarriages number 4 and number 5. Heartbroken, we still feel very blessed that we still have 3 embryos in Greece. And we're expecting to transfer 2 more next month with hopes that one of these last 3 embryos will hopefully end our struggle to start a family. I want to touch really quickly on when you choose a donor in Greece, it's very, very different than in the U.S. In the U.S., you have profile pictures, you have sometimes even profile pictures of the mother now and then also when she was a child. You don't have that in Greece. By law, it's completely anonymous. So what we gave the fertility nurse over there was a document saying, I would like my donor to have a college degree. I would like my donor to possibly be, I mean, it's hard to be 5 foot tall. I suppose, that's not very common, but if she could have a little bit smaller stature, that might fit. And if she had light eyes, because in Greece, there's a lot of people with dark hair and dark eyes, and I love that. And Ilia's father had dark hair and dark eyes, so it could very well be that our child would have dark hair and dark eyes. But we were able to find a donor that was 5'3", 110 pounds. They gave us the logistics. We don't have pictures, but we know that she was 5'3", 110 pounds, light eyes, and somewhat lighter hair. So we were good with that. And that's all we know. That's all we'll ever know. But we're okay with that. So I did want to touch on that. I did also want to touch on, so after the last miscarriage, I obviously have a pretty severe recurrent pregnancy loss condition too. So I went to Chicago and sought a reproductive immunologist, and that is a doctor that goes in and looks very thoroughly at your blood, at your recurrent pregnancy loss, and finds out what the problems are. And I feel like when we go back to Greece, we're going to be utilizing her protocol as well as some of the protocol methods in Greece, and we're going to hopefully combine them all together, and with hopes that we'll have success this time, or at least one of these times. Hopefully we'll have 2 more times with 3 embryos. I want to leave you guys just personally with this quote from Vince Lombardi. It's one of my favorite quotes. It says, "Winning, I firmly believe that any man's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment of all that he holds dear, is that moment when he has worked his heart out in good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle victorious." We're so hopeful to be able to hold that little blessing someday soon, that little treasure in our arms that has too often, in my case, been taken away. But we also, as a couple, know that we never want to look back on this journey with regret. So thank you for listening. Really quick, Ilya's going to go through a couple of, if you pull out your yellow sheets, this is the cost breakdown.
I guess I do want to say that when we found out about Greece, obviously there's this fear of going to a foreign land, with different kind of medical practices and who knows, different education, different system altogether. But the whole process, looking back, there's zero regret. The knowledge, the way we were treated, the whole sort of facility, it was all top notch. It was awesome, and obviously the amount of money that we spent initially on the IVF, anonymous donor egg treatment here versus there, I think it really is why we're up here. Is because it's literally a third less. So just to break it down for you guys, the initial, the process itself, the actual donor egg, I guess, transfer is including all the medication for the donor, and including all the medication for Michelle, and all the way through to the transfer is 5,000 euros. So now I think the exchange rate is only at 15%. Back then it was 30%. So it's already substantially less than when we went just 4 months ago. Little tiny other costs like wire fees and some other medications that obviously are based on individual needs. The flights, you can pick up a flight probably to Greece for about $1,000, depending on the time of year you go, and depending on the amount of time that you actually, I guess, want to travel. So some travel times are 20 hours, some are 30 hours, some are 16 hours. So one of my concerns coming back was to have the shortest amount of time, because this was just after the transfer, and I didn't want Michelle to obviously have to go and endure a very long extended travel back. So we paid a little bit extra, and we came back, I think, in just under 16 hours. Besides that, the accommodations, we also stayed with Ruth, the nurse over there, and the accommodations were great. The hospitality was amazing. There's really we found no drawbacks. If you can find the time, I would say go for it. I think that's it. The total cost was obviously for us about 12,000 US. Initially, when we went for the same treatment here, we spent well in excess of 30. So for us, it was a no-brainer. I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
I would like to introduce Sarah Kovacs, the CPA with Reinhardt and Kovacs CPA firm. She's going to talk about the tax benefits. Couldn't hear? There you go. Maybe I should actually talk in the microphone. I'm sorry. I'm going to introduce Sarah Kovacs with Reinhardt and Kovacs CPA firm. She's going to talk about tax incentives to adoption and fertility treatments.
As she said, I'm Sarah Kovacs with Reinhardt and Kovacs CPAs. We're a small CPA firm that deals with anyone, individuals to small business clients of all sizes and types to nonprofits as well. I'm pleased to be here this morning to talk to you about the potential tax benefits you can have from whether you're doing infertility treatments or you're looking at adoption. I'll start with infertility procedures. The IRS considers what they term fertility enhancement a deductible medical expense. This means that any out-of-pocket expenses you have for in vitro fertilization, prescription medication, pregnancy tests, reversal of prior sterilization procedures, storage of harvested eggs or sperm, therapy from psychologists are all expenses that can be deducted against your personal income tax liability. But first, let me preface this with saying that your deductible medical expenses have to exceed 10% of your adjusted gross income. For simple examples, say that you and your spouse have taxable income of $75,000 from your jobs. That's $150,000 of taxable income you have to report. That means your deductible medical expenses have to be at least $15,000 before you can begin to have a potential deduction from your medical expenses. One medical expense that people often miss is that the travel related to your medical treatments, procedures, going to pick up prescriptions, you can deduct standard mileage rate for that. In 2014, the standard mileage rate was 23.5 cents per mile. If you incur parking tolls or fees while you're going to your treatments, you can include those as well. Obviously, you've been hearing people are traveling out of town to have medical procedures done. The IRS has a standard lodging rate of $50 a night per person if you travel out of town for medical expenses. We get a lot of questions of what is deductible as far as medication. The only thing that is deductible as far as medication are prescriptions by a doctor. Nutritional supplements, over-the-counter medications, those don't count. Another item we receive numerous questions on are health insurance premiums. In order for health insurance premiums to be deductible, they have to be paid out of your pocket or be an after-tax deduction from your wages. Most employers have their employees on pre-tax health insurance plans, which means that you've already gotten a tax benefit when it was deducted from your wages. So if you do not know if your health insurance premiums are paid pre-tax or after-tax, have your accountant look at your paycheck stub. They'll be able to tell you whether your health insurance premiums will result in another deduction. And those are just a few of the details on medical-related expenses. Anything that you're incurring for your fertilization treatments will count as a deduction as long as you meet that 10% threshold I mentioned earlier. Moving on to the adoption credits. The IRS offers an adoption credit of up to $13,190 for expenses you have related to adopting. If you have $15,000 of adoption expenses, your tax credit is going to be limited to that $13,190. If you have $8,000 of adoption expenses, your credit is limited to that $8,000. There is one exception to that I'll cover in a minute. Unlike the medical expense deduction, there are no minimum costs that you have to incur before you can claim the credit. There are, however, income phase-outs for the credit. So if you make between $197,880 to $237,880. If you're over the $237,880, there's no credit that you'll get to take. But you can carry it forward for 5 years. So if you go below the income threshold in the next 5 years, you can take the credit at that point in time. The adoption credit used to be a refundable credit. It is no longer a refundable credit. That means that it can take your tax liability to zero, but it will not create a refund for you beyond what you would normally receive. The costs that can be used to determine what expenses are deductible are any legitimate and reasonable necessary expenses that you incur for the legal adoption of a child. Most commonly, these are attorney fees, adoption fees, court costs, travel expenses such as meal and lodging while away from home for the purpose of the adoption. Costs that cannot be included for an adoption credit are costs that you incur if you adopt a spouse's child, costs of using a surrogate, or any costs that are covered by a government agency or employer. If someone else paid for it, then you don't get to claim that credit expense. And the cost must be for the adoption of a child under the age of 18. Any person who is disabled physically or incapable of self-care. I mentioned an exception to the adoption credit being limited earlier, and that is if you adopt a special needs child. The IRS defines a special needs child differently from what we are used to. They define it as someone that is unlikely to be adopted unless assistance is provided due to the child's age, ethnic background, or medical condition. So you can receive a full adoption tax credit of $13,190 on that adoption, even if you do not spend any of your own money. If you try to adopt a child in the United States and adoption is unsuccessful, you can still claim a credit for those expenses. The timing of claiming the adoption credit on your tax returns is tricky. If the adoption is drawn out over a period of several years, you have to wait a year from the point that you start having those expenses to claim the credit. For example, say that an adoptive parent has qualified expenses of $3,000 in 2012, $4,000 in 2013, and $5,000 in 2014. In 2014, the adoption becomes final. If the adoption is domestic, the adoptive parent can claim the $3,000 of expenses paid in 2012 on their 2013 tax return. That's because you had to wait a year before you could start to claim it. Then the adoptive parent gets to claim the $4,000 from 13 and the $5,000 from 14 on their 14 return. You claim the 13 expenses because a year has passed, and you claim the 14 expenses in 14 because the adoption was finally finalized. If this adoption was foreign, the adoptive parent has to wait until 2014 to claim all $12,000 medical expenses. Foreign adoption expenses cannot be claimed until the adoption is complete. The IRS doesn't want to give a tax credit for someone that doesn't become a U.S. citizen. If for some reason the child lives with you before the adoption is final, this often happens in foster child situations, you can claim that child as a dependent on your tax return if they lived with you for at least 6 months out of the year, and provided you provide for at least half of their living costs. Claiming the child as dependent on your tax return gets you another exemption, and if applicable, you qualify for the child tax credit and child care credit. As you can tell, the tax code can be a challenging thing to navigate. Hopefully I have provided a couple of areas where you can receive some tax benefits from your situations, whether you're incurring significant medical costs or considering adoption. Something I learned very early on as a CPA is that every client's tax situation is different and unique. What is the right answer or best tax advantage for one person isn't the right answer for the next person. I provide general guidance with the common limitations. If you have specific questions about your situation or how the tax code works together for you, I'd be happy to listen to your situation and answer any questions that you have. My contact information is on the screen. There's business cards at the back when you came in. I'd be happy to help you if you have questions about what I talked about today or any other tax questions in general. Thank you.
Okay, next from Reproductive Resource Center, RRC, we have Erica Henderson. She's the office manager for RRC. That's a reproductive endocrinologist office located in Overland Park, Kansas. She's going to explain financing and multi-cycle plans offered at RRC.
Okay, thank you for having me, and thank you KCIA for the invitation to be able to talk today. I have been asked to talk about 2 of the financing options that RRC has available. So the first one I'm going to talk to you about is called Attain. And I don't know if any of you have heard of Attain, but Attain is a plan that is administered by Integramed Fertility. So you can look them up or just look up Attain as well. RRC's proud to honor this program because it is only certain clinics in the country that are actually selected to be able to participate. And it's based on pregnancy rates and quality standards. So we're very proud to have that opportunity. So what Attain is from an 18,000 level view is kind of an insurance plan. So it is only for people who have no insurance or who have only monitoring in their insurance policy. So kind of there's 2 plans. The core plan is a shared risk program. So it's kind of an insurance policy. You get 2 egg retrievals and then the transfer of all resulting embryos until you take home a baby. If you are using your own eggs, you are automatically eligible for the plan. What we have found is that traditionally people look at this plan or look at this as an option if they have been through a failed cycle and they are sitting in front of us knowing that they still want to have another course of treatment, but their fear of what it is ultimately going to cost them. So this somewhat puts a cap on that. Attain just this year started the all resulting FETs. So what that means when I said the transfer of all resulting embryos is if during the retrieval you have 8 embryos that are still there and your cycle is not successful, there is no additional cost for the transfer of all those resulting FETs. So the second plan is called the refund plan, and it, in order to take part of this plan, you do have to meet certain clinical criteria, age, BMI, prior cycle information, lab work, all of that is included in the evaluation for the criteria to get into the plan. If you choose that plan, there's actually 2 options. There is a 2 retrieval or a 3 retrieval plan. So if the treatment is unsuccessful with this plan, you receive up to 100% of your money back. So, and I say up to, and that's always the, nobody thinks that they'll get the 100%. So the way it works is if you do the 2 egg retrieval, you get 50%. If you do the 3 egg retrieval, you get 100%. And again, this plan also allows for unlimited FETs. So once that retrieval takes place, if there are any resulting embryos, all of those FETs are included in that plan. So good news and bad news. So the bad news is it costs a lot of money. And you guys know that, and you've heard some of the expenses. So I'm kind of the bad person up here a little bit. But with these plans, you essentially pay more for your cycle. So it's like an insurance plan. So you pay more for the cycle, but you are guaranteed either your money back or to take home a baby. Plans range from $14,000 to $18,000, so ballpark. Something to remember, that does not include medications, hospital charges. So this is just for the cycle or the lab part of the cycle. So again, Attain plans are offered through IntegraMed. So although we offer the plan and we are a part of that plan, your contract is really with IntegraMed. So just to clear that. The good news, the bad news and not the good news. The good news is that according to IntegraMed, 80% of participants who participate in the plan take home a baby. So the second program I'll talk about just very briefly is called Springstone Financing, and it's a loan program. I mean, most of the RE groups in town have something similar, and it is just a very basic, based on your credit rating, you're going to get a higher or lower interest rate, and based on your credit rating and your financial status, you'll get either a smaller or larger loan amount. Obviously, the positive for that is you're going to have monthly payments, which it's still difficult. I'm not going to lie, it's still difficult, but at least you have a set mark and you're not looking at that expense every month as that large expense. You're able to break it down into smaller groups. That pretty much sums up our 2 programs. If you have any questions, I'll be around after and be happy to answer those. But I want to thank you all for your time today and wish you good luck on your journey.
All right, now is the time where we're going to